What would you ask a lawyer if you could ask them anything? My brother and I opened up an answering machine to allow friends and family to do just that. The questions we received were remarkable. So remarkable, in fact, that we decided to turn them into a podcast. Now, while this podcast isn't legal advice and it's just for fun, we think you're really going to like what you hear. With that being said, my name's Nathan Beam, and I help run a personal injury law firm in Melbourne, Florida.
My name's Riley Beam, and I'm a personal injury attorney.
And from the law offices of Douglas R. Beam, this is Good Questions for Bad Days.
Hey there. In the future, when there are self-driving cars, where do you guys see the line of responsibility falling when a car accident happens? Will it be the driver's fault? Will it be the automaker's fault? And then there's like the great paradoxical question of if the car only has two options, whether it hits an old lady crossing the road or, totally blows up a school bus full of kids. Like, what responsibility does the automaker have in making that decision and choosing it well? What are your thoughts?
We've had cases where Teslas were involved, but it's almost always, actually every case we've handled, the human was operating the vehicle. There have been other cases around the country where the human lets the vehicle take control. Tesla will say that it is not their responsibility. It's a feature of the car, but not something humans should be relying on for their safety. So the human should always have control over the car. That's Tesla's position. But we know that doesn't happen, right? And if it's a feature, then that's something people will use. So you'll see this, and I'll use an old example, or a couple old examples. You'll see it with ladders, and you'll see it with saws, so circular saws, especially the handheld ones where people are getting up into attic spaces. Handheld saws have really come a long way. A lot of these can detect if human flesh is hitting it and shut off. So there's a case where a guy cut off his thumb. He stuck a piece of wood. He even knew how to kind of rig it to keep the plastic from blocking it. He was able to win some money even though he modified the product. The circular saw company was aware of this, and they knew people were doing it, so it's their duty to protect the public that's using it. Even if they know the public will misuse it, that is not an absolute defense. Same with ladders. People were using ladders in all kinds of weird, crazy ways. That's why you see all these warnings on the side of ladders to let people know. Tesla similarly knows that they have a potentially world-changing technology that other companies are developing as well, that people are relying on being safe. Other drivers want the drivers of that vehicle to be safe and not just have an unfinished product, which a Tesla is at this point. They will say, on one hand, it's way safer than a human driving. On the other hand, don't let the car drive itself for any sort of extended period of time. So they're trying to play both sides of it. Tesla still has a ways to go, and with an unfinished product out there, they have a duty and responsibility to the public to protect them. So there's a lot of things that they're still responsible for, even if, they have warnings and they tell you not to, and it seems like common sense.
It's great. It's great. All right. This is a pretty broad question, Riley. I know that you're not a litigator in terms of making laws, that's not what you do. But, just personal opinion, what are some issues that you think lawmakers are going to have to think through as they consider who is at fault during these accidents?
Well, they have to look at a lot of data. Statistically, there's still going to be accidents. There can be, if a tire blows out or, something happens, there's still going to be accidents. But they have to look at generally what's the safest for the public. What does the public want? There's things on the positive side. If you may not need to own a vehicle anymore, if you can just call a self-driving car that shows up, no one's driving it, and it's owned by the public, or you could privately share with other people vehicles. That's great. You won't have as many cars on the road. Ownership from the public would go down. These cars are all electric and good for the environment, better for the environment as far as carbon emissions. There's disputes about the battery and, building that, but there's a lot of good things that the regulators should consider. And then the bad things are, what are these failure rates? How do we anticipate what types of settings these happen? What type of weather environments? High pedestrian traffic areas. There's a lot of different variables when you drive that you can't anticipate them all. But I think the regulators need to take a look at it and see, what the differences will be, and what from now, where 40,000 plus people die a year on the roadways, it might go down exponentially with self-driving cars everywhere. But there still will be things that go wrong. Nothing is perfect in human transport.
So sorry to say to all of you new Tesla owners out there, while we think you should try out the self-driving function, it might be a good idea to keep your hands near the wheel of the car. Sometimes technology can move a little bit faster than the law. And speaking of the law, if you're facing a legal issue, particularly a personal injury one, call us. With over $100 million in settlements and verdicts for families in Central Florida, we've gotten pretty good at what we do. And in the 35 years we've been open, the reviews and the word from the community, I think, is representative of that. So if you're facing any sort of legal issue, you should call us. If we can't help you, there's a really good chance that we know someone who can. And hey, if you're an attorney who's listening to this podcast and is looking for co-counsel in Florida, you should also give us a call. We regularly work on multi-million-dollar cases and would be happy to help. You can reach us at 321-723-6591 or at dougbeam.com. And from all of us, the law office of Douglas R. Beam, we really appreciate you listening, and we're looking forward to answering more good questions for bad days.